All right, so Dennis asked me to kind of jump here and talk a little bit about goals. Now, as you know, goal setting is probably going to be the difference between you succeeding in this business and not succeeding in this business. We've had a lot of focus and energy on this. It's because it's that important. And we're going to kind of remind you about the basics here. They need to be clear, concise, and concrete, guys. They have to be, it's not one thing just saying, oh, I'm going to get 3 listings this month. But the real thing is, how are you going to get there? What are the activities you're going to engage in? What are the behaviors you're going to engage in? What are you going to do every single day to reach that goal, right? They have to be written down and visible, right? You have to know what these things are. I've interviewed top producers, and it was amazing the number of them that had in their office right on the board of what their activity was, what their goal was for the month, how close they were to getting there. With beginning and end dates. What's your weekly goal, your monthly goal, what's your annual income goal? And this is the thing, guys, I can always tell when someone has goals. Because if I say, how are you doing? They don't say great, they don't talk about the weather, they don't talk about their family. Immediately it will come down to, well, Phil, things are going pretty good. I've had X number of appointments. I'm kind of on track to where I want to be. Or maybe I'm a couple listings short of where I want to be, or my dollar volume's a little bit south of where I need it to be. But the good news is I have 2 appointments scheduled for this week. I've got 2 listings coming up with 3 additional appointments scheduled around the corner. They'll tell me how many appointments they've been on for the week or the month and how many appointments are coming up, because the focus is on that activity of getting the appointment. They know the appointments turn into the dollars. That's the goal. And it's very obvious to them, right? It's very obvious to them. It makes me feel good when I ask someone and they'll say, pretty good, but, and we'll talk about what those numbers are, right? This is the other thing though. It does have to be consistent with your ethics, right? It's got to be grounded in performance too. And this is the one thing where this kind of comes, and even referencing those appointments. You know, it's one thing if you're a little bit behind in your dollar goal, because if you have the appointments, some of those appointments aren't going to result in anything for maybe 3 months later, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later. So you can't just focus on the numbers. It's your performance of getting the appointments. How did you do in those performance? Not the results. Focus on the performance, right? This is the other thing about the goals, guys. It's the fastest way to alter your behavior. You know, Dennis and I were talking about this whole idea, and we'll talk a little bit more about this. If you focus on these things, it will change your behavior and focus on the things that are important. What's that look like, right? So it's all about the focus, right? The important is seldom urgent, right? So if you don't have those important things scheduled, it's not going to happen. The other side of that, the urgent is seldom important, and you're going to be pulled away from what you want to do. You have to make a conscious choice to work on certain things and not work on things. The other thing, guys, in this business, honestly, it can just take your time. You can spend 24 hours a day working in this business. And this was kind of my thing. You have to schedule time off. You have to schedule some recreation and leisure. It kind of goes back to what Dennis said. If it's not about fun, family, or finance, you're probably doing the wrong things, but you need to schedule that recreation and leisure too. You know, Dennis and I've done this a long time. We've talked about some agents, when they found out they've done the wrong things, is when they're in the hospital having this nervous breakdown, overwhelmed with the amount of business, when they should have been looking at their things, and maybe it was time to hire an assistant to take over some of those things, right? You've got to make some time for personal growth and learning. It's what keeps you moving forward. It's how things work. Skill set training. It's all about getting very, very good at what you're doing. You know, what's your conversion rate on your appointments? What's your conversion rate on your number of calls you make to actually schedule the appointment? Have you updated it, what's going on currently in the market? IPA, it's not just a beer. It's probably one of those things that's income producing activities. That's where you want to spend your time. When you look back at your time, guys, at the end of the day, you want to look at your day. There's one of our managers, and we talk about, and he goes, at the end of the day, I look at the day and what happened. Kind of give yourself a scorecard. How did you do that day? Don't be too hard on yourself, because you can focus the activity in the next day, but how did you do, right? And measure it.